Welcome back to Mastering Public Health. We have seen a system that costs the most and delivers less than its peers. Now comes the hardest part, fixing it. For decades, Americans have tried to control costs and widen access, with mixed and often frustrating results. Part 3 walks that road. We meet the uninsured and underinsured, revisit the landmark reform of 2010, and face the questions the country still refuses to settle. Start with the people the system leaves out. In 2018, about 27.5 million Americans, roughly 8.5% of the population, had no health insurance for the entire year. It is easy to picture them as jobless, but most of the uninsured live in working families. They earn too much for Medicaid in many states, yet too little to comfortably buy coverage on their own. Young adults are the most likely of all to go without, and this scale of uninsurance is something no other wealthy nation tolerates. Western Europe, Japan, and Canada cover essentially everyone. Being insured is no longer the same as being protected. As premiums rose, employers shifted more of the cost onto workers through higher deductibles and co-payments. Some plans, especially consumer-directed ones, now carry deductibles so high that insurance pays nothing until the patient has spent thousands out of pocket. The intent was to make people cost conscious. The effect too often is that people skip or delay care they actually need, letting small problems grow into serious ones. This is the world of the underinsured. Their card says covered, but their coverage does not feel secure. For the poorest Americans, the safety net is Medicaid, a program funded jointly by the federal government and the states. The 2010 reform tried to widen it dramatically, extending coverage to nearly all low-income adults. But a Supreme Court ruling let each state decide for itself, and a number opted out entirely, leaving a gap where childless adults get nothing. Even where Medicaid reaches, there is a catch. In some states, it pays doctors so little that many refuse to take Medicaid patients at all. Coverage on paper does not always mean a doctor who will see you. Before the big reform, the main effort to control costs came from managed care. Health maintenance organizations and preferred provider organizations bargained with doctors and hospitals for lower rates and steered patients through a primary care gatekeeper to avoid unnecessary specialist care. At its best, managed care emphasized prevention and coordination, goals public health shares. It worked for a while. Medical inflation slowed sharply in the 1990s, but patients bristled at being told which doctors to see and which treatments were denied. The backlash weakened managed care through new laws and lawsuits, and costs soon resumed their climb. Then came the most significant reform in decades. In 2010, President Obama persuaded Congress to pass the Affordable Care Act, and it took full effect in 2014. It banned one of the cruelest practices in insurance, denying coverage to people with pre-existing conditions. It let young adults stay on their parents' plan up to age 26. It created insurance exchanges, online marketplaces where individuals could shop for a plan, often with subsidies to help pay for it. And it added preventive benefits at no cost. For millions, coverage that had been out of reach was suddenly possible. The reform survived, but it did not go unchallenged. Opponents fought the law in court, and twice the Supreme Court largely upheld it. Yet the attacks left their mark. In 2017, Congress repealed the individual mandate, the requirement that everyone carry insurance. Without it, healthier people were freer to drop coverage, which pushes premiums up for those who remain. Meanwhile, a number of states refused to expand Medicaid at all. The result is a reform that shrank the ranks of the uninsured but never finished the job. Millions still fall through the cracks it left behind. Behind all of this lies a word Americans refuse to say out loud: rationing. In the late 1980s, Oregon tried to face it honestly. With a limited Medicaid budget, the state ranked treatments by how much good they did, drew a line, and used the savings to cover far more people. It was controversial, and it eventually faltered, but the idea was clear-eyed. Here is the part we avoid. We already ration care, silently, by ability to pay. When an uninsured child is denied treatment, that is rationing too. Oregon simply made the choice visible. That points toward the road the United States has not taken. Its wealthy peers from Canada to Western Europe to Japan run national plans that insure essentially everyone. When a single payer handles the bills, much of the administrative tangle we met in Part 1 simply disappears. And remember the scorecard. Those countries spend less per person and get better health outcomes than we do. Whether America should move toward a single payer system remains one of the most heated debates in its politics. For now, it stays unresolved, a road considered but not chosen. Reform did not stop with the ACA. In 2022, the Inflation Reduction Act took aim at drug prices. Starting in 2023, it capped the cost of insulin for people on Medicare at $35 a month, and for the first time, it let Medicare negotiate the price of some drugs, with the lower prices arriving in 2026. But deep problems endure. Black mothers still die in childbirth at about 3.5 times the rate of white mothers, and that gap has widened. And by 2024, nearly 1 in 4 working age adults were underinsured, with Americans owing more than $220 billion in medical debt. Let us close the chapter. The American medical system is the most expensive on earth, yet it leaves millions without care and trails its peers on health. The Affordable Care Act narrowed the gap, and later laws chipped away at drug prices, but the deeper work is unfinished. Real reform will mean doing what the country has long avoided, weighing cost against benefit, and deciding openly who deserves care. That is a hard conversation and an unavoidable one. Thanks for watching Mastering Public Health.